Welcome to today's Zaleski Sports Show. Jason Zaleski here. Dan Ross is in the window to my left. I hope it looks that way on the screen for everybody back at home. Um, got a lot to talk about today. We had a full day of girls basketball playoffs yesterday. We had hockey sectional semifinals. Teams that won last night are one win from a state tournament berth, with first of those games starting on Friday. We've got our weekly schedule and, of course, the ever popular and growing Marwood Minute. But first, though, Dan, I want to start. Every year, every basketball season, every season, after sports in this state, high school sports playoffs are decided, there's always commentary from people around town, or these days a lot on social media. And I know a lot can be said on social media, and you shouldn't take any emotion from it because these are just words on a screen. And I really limit myself in the emotional side of it. Most times I just pass right on by it after I read it. There's no need to respond to everything that I see. And that's advice, I suppose, for me to everybody. This particular time, something has really latched onto me, though, and I just want to get this off my chest. So, there are boys basketball coaches, high school basketball coaches in this fine state of ours, the great state of Wisconsin, who are, I think they're attempting to understand still in our fourth year now of computerized seating. So that's a code word for you should have already been able to move on from this, boys basketball coaches. They think that they have a better system. They know a better system. They want to have a better system. One told I often respond with, just keep in mind, coaches, it's your association who has formed these policies and guidelines and rules. And one coach recently retorted to me, well, we didn't get a vote in that. Well, you did, because you elected a leadership council, leadership positions within your association. That was your vote. And it's much like a lot of votes that we see in our country politically, that when you elect those people, you are electing them to speak on your behalf. And that was your vote. There are some that, they want to point to the Massey ratings. And Dan, you and I talk about these Massey ratings all the time, and they're interesting in their own way. But the Massey ratings really fly in the face of the WIAA and all that it stands for in the way of good sportsmanship, coaches being good stewards of the game. And here's what I mean by that. And then my rant will be over. The one of the components of the Massey ratings is a point differential score. And there are different tiers to it. And the more you outscore on the average your opponents, the more points will be accumulated in this rating system. That flies in the face of anything that high school sports stand for. And it should, because it's a really bad idea. It's, to me, bad and in poor taste in the way that, other than your top 6 or 7, I'm talking if you're a good team, right? You're trying to get a top seed, you're vying for something better than what you have now. So in the top half of your bracket, or what you think, if you think you're in the top half of your bracket, after the 6, 7, maybe the eighth guy on your bench, nobody else is going to get any playing time, because
Right.
you're always going to be concerned about how much more do we need to score to get in the next tier to get the next point for our rating. And that is not good sportsmanship. And it really deflates and discourages the high school student athlete experience. So I wish that the people online would just stop talking about these other solutions for it. Yeah, there's 20 ways to do it, but your association landed on this one, and that's the one that it is. Rant is done.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. We obviously don't want the last 6 or 7 minutes of these high school games that are already over. Say it's a 25-point game with 6 minutes left. Let players 8, 9, 10, and some of the JVs play and get some playing time, right? Instead of worrying about trying to win by 30 or 40 or whatever it has to be to optimize your seating. There's 20, generally 22 games that go into the seating process. All this gets rounded out, smoothed over anyway. So I feel like we are fighting over ghosts sometimes, right? Because um, everybody has this thing in their mind. It's called an opinion, that might be right or it might be wrong. And at least the WIA has it spelled out somewhat cryptically, but we can obviously figure it out, right? Um, is it perfect? Probably not. But the WIAA has shown that they are willing to listen to feedback and to make things better every year or two, however often it updates. And the head-to-head this year has been a positive change, I think. If two teams are very close together and one team beat the other, then they deserve that higher seed. And I really like that it's not just set in stone, concrete forever. It's not a yes no type situation, right? I would like to see improvements personally on beating higher division teams. You get a bonus. No penalty for playing down, but a bonus for playing up. I think that would be something that would be pretty interesting. But again, you know, we're splitting hairs. It's so much better than what it used to be. Everybody knows that you need to schedule tough teams. You need to beat tough teams to get better seeds. Makes sense to me.
It seems pretty simple. I think you're right. I think some of these coaches are they're attempting to make they want it to be more complicated than it needs to be. Dan, some states use areas instead of sections,
True.
and one of the components in the schedule is you would play everyone in your section twice, so similar to a conference schedule, and then you fill out the rest of your schedule in somewhat of a non-conference way. And then you're with those systems, you are comparing apples to apples because you've played everybody in your postseason group, and so now we can make direct comparisons, and there is no math to do after that. Everybody knows their record in this case, in your section. But in girls basketball, we'll transition into that with this. In Division One, there are 18 teams in a section. Well, we can't play 36 games to play everybody twice. So the system we have takes the math to make an unbiased rating of the teams that are really incomparable, and attempts to put them in the order that it best can. So, all right. Without further ado, according to wisports.net, we had over 139 girls basketball games last night across the state. Dan, as you and I have talked about before, that means 139 teams advanced in girls high school playoff basketball here in Wisconsin, and 139 teams saw their season come to an end. And for those, we wish them all the best of luck going forward, especially the seniors on those teams. I'll before I get to the scores, I'll leave that to you. You've talked a lot about the bittersweetness of a tournament style bracket.
Yeah, coaching boys or girls over several years when you've been blessed to be a big part of their lives for a couple of years. Having the seniors leave is absolutely heartbreaking. It's heart-wrenching, right? Um, but next year is a new year, and you get a chance to impact more lives the next year. And I talked to Coach Jacobson a little bit about this after the game, my game on was that Monday night? Monday night. He has been coaching marathon for 14 years now, and everybody that graduates that program is a better man leaving it, right? And that's the best you can hope for as coaches. But man, it's really tough to see him go.
Yeah, it is, and even for me, I was helping out the company. By the way, a lot of these scores I'm telling folks about, and I'll attempt to get them all. We've made highlights, and you can watch highlights on our Facebook channels. Um, One that I helped out make this morning in the handshake line afterwards, right? The team that's losing, I mean, tears and tears, and it's a horrible thing in that way. All right, well, let's start in how Wisports identifies the North Central region. I'll go through some games that may be of interest to some folks. Rib Lake over Flambeau, 74-17. South Shore over Thorpe, 65-46. A game I was at, Loyal over Northland Lutheran, 56-33. Highlights are on Facebook right now. Greenwood over Newman Catholic, 57-35. Highlights coming this afternoon on Facebook. Along with Almond over Athens, 56-14. So Greenwood Almond live on Zaleski Sports on Friday. Loyal's win puts them at the number one assumption live on Zaleski Sports on Friday. Pittsville over Elko, 79-18. Columbus Catholic, 53-8 over Tri-County. The Penguins struggling to end the season. Pacelli over Port Edwards, 59-14. If you remember back, Dan, just a couple weeks ago, Pacelli had scored over 90 points on Port Edwards, but reined it in a little bit last night, maybe.
Resting the troops a little bit. It's a long tournament.
It is a long term, 3 games this week if you're fortunate enough. All right, scrolling through here, Medford over Wausau East, 75-27. So the undermanned Lumberjacks or underladied Lumberjacks, their season does come to an end last night. In a game we had live last night here on this network, it was Anago 48, Green Bay East 47. The Red Robins go and steal one from the Red Devils in Green Bay last night. You've got some familiarity with the Anago Red Robins.
Yeah, they have struggled a lot this year. Green Bay East has struggled a little bit more. I don't think they won this year. Kind of let that one go. Real close game last night.
Certainly was. Tomahawk 50, Sturgeon Bay 35.
That's a
Viroqua
long
30.
trip. That's a long trip. Whoever had to make that trip. Tomahawk and Sturgeon Bay.
Tomahawk, I think Sturgeon Bay went to Tomahawk. That is a long ways, right? Yeah,
That
westward.
is a long trip.
Viroqua got past Stanley Boyd 32-29. That's a final score, by the way. I'll say it again, 32-29,
Not a
a
half
final
game.
score. Yeah, that's a conservative bunch, perhaps, over there. Amherst 54, Northland Pines 23. In overtime, highlights are on Facebook right now. DC Everest and Appleton West 57-54. Evergreens over the Terrors in overtime. That was the 15-18 matchup over in Schofield. Colby 47, Edgar 37. That also a final score. And we'll wrap it up here with Owen Withy 59-16 over Bayfield, and Prentice 44-35 winners over the Butternut Jaglinskis. It's finals in girls basketball last night. Yeah, there we go. So congratulations to all the teams moving on. Again, best luck, especially on the seniors, for all of you that were not able to make it through. Let's move now to boys hockey. I promise I had all this lined up just a minute ago, but in the studio here, sometimes the internet is a fleeting commodity for me. I do know Mosney got past Lakeland, Dan. So your T-Birds have fell a few times over the years to the Mosney Indians, and it happened again last night over in Mosney. So the Indians move on to
He
the
has their
sectional final.
hands full on Saturday, Friday, Saturday, in that sectional final against the Hatchets. Tough team this year.
Yep, it certainly is, and get my wits back about me here. We'll go to my D2 brackets. Yes, so Mosney 4-1 winners over Lakeland last night. Tomahawk 6-3 winners over Northland Pines, conference opponents, all of them, right? All out of the GNC. So it is Friday, 7 o'clock. The puck drops. Watch it live here on Zaleski Sports. Tomahawk and Mosney, the underseeded Indians, host the Hatchets on Friday night.
Yeah, usually those sectional finals are neutral site, but given hockey, usually they just pick a place, and no matter what, that's where you're at.
Well, where are you going to go between Tomahawk and Mosney anyway? It's really all the same thing. Amory on the other side of it, Amory Co-op and Hayward will hit the ice in Amory at 7 o'clock. And on the other side of the bracket altogether, you've got McFarland and Monona Grove, and Somerset, St. Croix Falls taking on River Falls. Those games are on Saturday over in Division 2. In Division 1 boys hockey, Brookfield East Co-op got past Kettle Moraine 6-3. Arrowhead in overtime over the University School of Milwaukee. So you get to beat some university kids. That's a big win. You beat the older
Overtime hockey, nothing like it.
I'm telling you, right? It's
Incredible.
magic in the playoffs to begin with, but you get to overtime. Another overtime game last night, it was Verona in double overtime, 4-3 winners over Wanakee. And Edgewood got past Middleton 7-1. So that sets up the south side of Division 1, if you want to look at it. And that's kind of how it's all lined up. In the north side of Division 1, Neenah 4-1 winners over West Bend. Notre Dame 7-2 winners over St. Mary Springs. And Wausau West in a slugfest against New Richmond 6-5 final. Warriors move on, and they will take on Eau Claire Memorial, who beat the upstart Chippewa Falls Cardinals 2-1. So the Cinderella slipper is off of the Cardinals. And Memorial and West take on each other 7 o'clock Friday in Chippewa. I will be at that game, and you get to watch it live on Zaleski Sports.
Yeah, I am pretty certain that Wausau West is pretty happy that the Splash Panthers are not opposite them for what happens between those two teams this year.
Everybody in the entire bracket is happy about that, except for one team, the Splash Panthers.
Yeah.
Yeah, somewhat of an upset for the ages, but there's been others, and we could do a whole show on Wisconsin, historic Wisconsin high school sports upsets.
Yeah.
Okay, so on Thursday, we've got a pretty good slate of boys basketball action on Thursday, live on Zaleski Sports. Port Edwards at Pacelli, Lakeland at Mosinee, Stratford at Assumption. Somebody's got to win the Marwood South Conference. Marathon at Auburndale. Dan, I'll pause there. That's a game that I believe you're at. And Auburndale attempting to fight off the Red Raiders one more time this year and clinch at least a share of the conference title.
Yeah, I believe you're there with me, but like maybe that's changed. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But yeah, Auburndale kind of got their butts handed to them Monday night, right? The Stratford Tigers, they're up almost 30 late in that game. Auburndale plays a lot of close games. Marathon plays a lot of close games. It's gonna be a 2 to 4 point game. I just you guarantee it.
Tell you what,
Guarantee.
I'll go to the game with you if it makes you happy. I'll go with you.
Well, you are on the schedule, so
Oh, oh, that formality. Okay.
yeah.
You and I were at the Auburndale gym the first time Stratford played Auburndale. And when we went to halftime, Stratford was up by double digits. And you and I looked at each other and said, yeah, it looks like Stratford's going to win this one by 20. The Tigers came out in the second half completely flat. Auburndale surged ahead to hit some free throws at the end to win by 4 or 5. And Stratford took that uh, with them. And then, like you said, on Monday, they again went to the halftime with a double-digit lead and did not let up. In the second half, they kept the pedal down and really dismantled the Auburndale Eagles on Monday night.
Yeah, that halftime speech for Coach Schmidt going with a lead into that locker room just writes itself, right? And I'm sure they talked about it all week in practice or over the weekend. I'm sure that those kids came out and said, we are winning the second half, right? We have a lead, but this half at 0-0, we win this half. So congratulations to the Tigers. That's Auburndale's second loss of the year. Both teams are 21-2.
And
Crazy.
almost seemingly destined to see each other again in a sectional semifinal.
Seems that way.
Playoffs, though, I'll preface it playoffs, right? Who knows? Stratford at Assumption. Let's go back to that one real quick, and I'll finish up the boys' basketball schedule. The Assumption Lions coaching staff tells me that they have not lost a home conference game this year. Is that true?
It's true. They beat Marathon at the buzzer and they knocked off Auburndale earlier on in the year. Both Auburndale and Marathon shot really poorly. It's a tough gym for visiting teams to shoot in. Stratford, kind of gritty. They probably own the inside, right? Bruzewitz, possibly the player of the year. It would be my vote if I got a vote. I don't. Um, but there's going to be a time where I assume Bruzewitz is going to put the team on his shoulders and get it done.
I think later on in the show, though, you're going to attempt to convince the voters of that. The other games on Thursday night, Wausau East at DC Everest, Iola Scandinavia at Amherst, and another game that has a conference title all over it is Fond du Lac at Kaukauna. The Cardinals, the upstart Fond du Lac Cardinals this year, and of course, the Kaukauna Galloping Ghosts, #1 seed, but winner take all on Thursday night over in Kaukauna.
Yeah, that is a huge game. If that was in Fond du Lac, I would think that Fondy would have a little bit better of a chance, but there's a lot on the line for the Ghosts. And at home, just feel like they're gonna find a way.
Friday, playoffs resume on Friday on the girls' basketball side. Holman at Marshfield. These are games that are live. Fox Valley Lutheran at Wapaka. Loyal at Assumption. Greenwood at Almond Bancroft. Columbus Catholic at Pittsville. Three Lakes at Pacelli. And the pair of hockey games I told you about earlier. Mosinee at Tomahawk and Eau Claire Memorial at Wausau West. I don't know, a couple $1,000s out the door and a bunch of playoff games for people to watch at their leisure Friday night.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend yesterday who messaged me on Facebook with a picture of me because I must be on an advertisement eating popcorn at Auburndale or something. And right away, the question was, how do we get Zaleski Sports at Lakeland games? How do we get Zaleski Sports to cover us more? And I'm like, well, you know, if it's regular season, we just need advertisers, right? We need to make it worthwhile. And if it's the playoffs, we need even more because the company has to pay the WIA for rights fees that don't exist in the regular season, and it's really expensive. I bet you it has to be well into five digits for Zaleski Sports every year. Has to be. Yeah.
We yeah, money and staffing. It's a for-profit company here. There are outfits, I suppose, that are volunteer run. To get the quality that you like about Zaleski Sports, we pay the people to do this job. Dan, you and I are the only ones who don't get paid around here.
It's true.
But yeah, we need the money to pay the folks to do the quality that people expect. So those two things are prereqs, and if you help us get those things lined up, we are happy to get the rest figured out for you. So check into the website, zaleskisports.com, hit the contact page and tell us who you are and what you're looking for. That's how we got to Green Bay East last night. A group of parents decided they wanted that game to be broadcast live. We happen to have some staff in the area. They helped with the funding or got the funding taken care of, and bada bing, bada boom, playoff game was live, and it was really well done. And again, turned out to be a 1 point win for the team that had the parents that didn't contribute financially. Can't help that.
Yeah. I mean, if nothing else, their last game as seniors are on YouTube forever.
Yeah, and it was a great game. You'll get for years now. Those girls in particular get to go back and they get to hear their names being said. And I've got one that I think she's graduated college by now, but she would come back and work at a particular food establishment in my area every summer. And every summer she would tell me how many of her roommates and dorm mates and friends and everybody else that she showed her last game. They would sit around and watch her last game. It was a loss. And but she told me we sit around and watch it all the time. I think she scored a bunch of points in the game or something. But yeah, after a while you get over the losing part of it, and then you're just there for the good times. So, and it's a lasting memory. It lasts forever, or so long as YouTube stays in business.
Yeah, and I almost feel like a lot of our local schools are spoiled a little bit in this way, right? Especially given the size of the schools, we have a lot of Division 4, Division 5 schools, obviously some D1, D2 schools as well, that has this really good coverage that is going to live forever as long as the internet's alive, more or less, right? And there are places all around the state, right? And obviously, Zaleski Sports is spreading into their fingers into some corners of it. But think about central Wisconsin having the circle and everything else around it is almost nothing, right? The kids who are on Zaleski Sports every night, right? Kind of take it for granted, but they're going to be able to go back and maybe someone scored 30 points and they averaged just six a game, but they had one monster game. They're going to watch that game their entire lives, right? Especially when they're 45 years old and they have a beer gut and like no one ever believed that he ran a step in his life. Be like, look at this. I scored 32 points in this high school game. Yeah, it's special.
It reminds me of one of the best movies of my lifetime, Forrest Gump. I would watch it daily if I could, because there's a lot of lessons in Forrest Gump. But what it reminds me, your memory of, or you're telling these kids what their memory is. Forrest, he goes to visit the White House as an All-American football player the first time. JFK is the president. And then he goes back a few years later to get a military medal from Lyndon Johnson. And in his dialogue leading up to it, he says, "And I went to the White House again."
Yeah.
So, yeah, some of these kids, I'm on Zaleski Sports again. And then to juxtapose that to you and I a week ago, we were in Bondwell, and the kids from Roncalli hadn't been on our network since their freshman year, and they knew every single thing about what was in store for them that night, including the post-game interviews and all that.
They were
So,
excited about it, right? They wanted to be on TV. A lot of these kids aren't on TV, and TV is YouTube today.
yeah. Yeah, that's what it is, right? And we were excited to be there, so it was a mutual thing. And the Bondwell kids were excited too. They just didn't happen to win that game. But even they, we had a 1,000 point score from the losing team, and I bet you the money in my pocket, he watched that game later on that night to see his 1,000th point again. Yeah,
Absolutely.
skipped. Then he turned it off after that
Probably.
for the
Well, he
time
didn't
being.
rattle home that three. That's another thing. He'd be like, my 1,000th point was on a 3-pointer, right? And they'd be like, you're like 6'8", like there's no way,
Yeah,
right? Big bodied kid. He might be 6'6", whatever, right? But big bodied kid, Westbrook, and he couldn't get open under the basket. He took it upon himself to shoot this three and rattled it home, and the place went nuts, despite being down 20 plus, right?
my advice to him and others like him or her is if you're attempting to secure a date for tomorrow night, you're in your adult life, years from now, and you need to win a wager maybe to get that person to go out with you, bet them those things, and you will get yourself a date that night with whoever it is you're looking for. I think that's my advice. Uncle
Yeah.
Jason talking to you here.
Yeah, I mean, we graduated in the later 1900s, you in the mid 90s.
Yeah,
There's no footage of anything anywhere,
no,
right? Just gone to the wind. Maybe there's a newspaper article with a picture in it somewhere,
just
right?
I'm a legend in my own mind.
It's true. No one can debate it though. That's the thing, right?
Yeah, I can't win a bet with my wife though on it, so because I can't prove it.
Well,
All
she'll
right.
know you too well. Like she can call you out on your nonsense.
Yeah, she knows all my friends from back then, but they're liars, so that's my problem. All right, let's move on. It is the nearly world famous Marwood Minute, and presented and proudly sponsored by Mid-State Technical College. Take it away, Dan Ross.
Yeah, I'm going out on a limb today. Anytime that I'm talking about players' names, fraught with disaster, but we're gonna try it today.
Here
Hello,
we go.
hello once again to your weekly Marwood Minute. As we wind down the winter sports season, let's cherish some of the amazing games we've seen over the past week. Let's start with the Rib Lake boys, conference champs, back to back, Marwood North champs. Congratulations to Coach Henderson and his kids. Think they have like a 4-game lead, like ran away with it. Fantastic. In the South, big upset in Rapids Friday night. The Marathon Red Raiders lost at the buzzer to the Assumption Royals. 0.4 on the clock, a little tip in. Nice play call by Coach Paltz. Got the win. Coach Paltz nearly tore his other ACL jumping and running across the court, I would say. Marathon followed that up with a double overtime win against Edgar on Monday night. I don't get paid a whole lot, but we were working for double money and double overtime over a Marathon. Like you mentioned, Auburndale hosts Marathon Thursday night. That's a big one. Stratford goes to Assumption, so something's got to give. And if they both win, then we'll have to figure out who's conference champs because we don't really like to play ties.
We'll get the calculator out. I'll figure it out in 10 seconds.
Okay. Thanks to the coaches who took time to speak to us on Sunday. We had the coaches show. Our Division 4 Marwood boys teams are all in the same sectional. Some coaches are dubbing it the Marwood Conference Tournament.
It somewhat is.
It somewhat is. Number 1 Auburndale, number 2 Stratford, number 4 Marathon, number 5 Phillips, number 7 Edgar, number 10 Abbotsford, number 12 Schwamigan, all in the same half of the bracket.
Or Hurley, they're the outcast in the group.
Yeah, and I think Hurley's going to see what the Marwood is like before
Yeah,
it's all said
yeah.
and done. Division 5, our Marwood teams are spread out a little bit. Rib Lake got a 4 seed, Prentice a 6 seed. Athens an 11 seed. Those are all in the northwest part of the brackets, part of the state. Assumption goes southwest. They're a 7 seed, so they get a home game. Number 12, Newman Catholic goes northeast. So most of our teams are all kind of compacted together. Then Division 5, you kind of go everywhere. But best of luck to everybody. That tournament starts Tuesday night. A bunch of teams have buys, much like the girls did this week. All right, one more quick shout out before we go. Okay. Congratulations to the Stratford wrestling team on making back to the state tournament. I think they just have their own hotel room there.
Yeah,
They just
they
go
do.
in
Yep, a free one probably at this point.
and probably. But there's a bunch of individual qualifiers, right? And we don't focus a lot on wrestling. You'll see wrestling in the Zaleski sports newspapers out on newsstands for free.
Yep,
We cover wrestling quite a bit,
yep.
but I want to focus on some of the Marwood wrestlers that did qualify, and they will be wrestling in Madison tomorrow, right? From Stratford, it looks like 8 kids, like incredible, right? The top two in the sectional get to go to state, right? So Colton Haupt, Trenton Kornauer, Colin Kornauer, Aaron Knetter, Matthias Kaiser, Brandon Knetter, Carter Luke, and Drew Gage from Stratford, all wrestling at the state tournament tomorrow. For Auburndale, Carson Weiler, Derek Goddard, Z Grasso, Colton Weiler. Colton Weiler is the number one seed in his weight class, and Carter Grasso. So 5 from Auburndale, 5 from Marathon, including number one seed Blake Underwood, Taylor Underwood, Kale Quaintance, Levi Krautkramer, and Swaney Stencil. So 5 from Marathon, 5 from Auburndale. 1 from Phillips, JJ Ardematis. Sorry.
JJ.
Yeah, JJ. Gregory Morgan of Schwamigan and Lucas Stanky of Edgar. And one more special call out, Jasmine Abear.
All right, Jasmine.
All right, from Auburndale, girls state qualifier this year. Obviously, that is somewhat new, right? Thankfully, the girls are getting their own wrestling tournament, and best of luck. It's kind of a Seinfeld reference, right? Because this is Hebert, where George would say,
Yeah, right.
what happened? Is it Abear or is it Herbert? Is it Abear? Yeah. So I think it's Abear in this case, especially because there's no R. It could be Hebert, right? Apologies for the length of the Norwood minute. But we wanted to call out the hard work on these qualifying kids. Tune in tomorrow to watch your favorite wrestlers. If you miss someone, my apologies. Send it to the errors and omissions desk, care of Marwood Pride on Twitter. And that is your Marwood Minute.
Ah, very well done. Yeah, this time of year I like the French pronunciation on anything. It's Mardi Gras season, so it's the season that keeps on giving. Also from errors and omissions, I want to go back to some other girls' basketball scores from yesterday that I had overlooked. Nisita over Spencer, 62-40. Cadott over Abbotsford, 54-21. Regis over Unity, 82-35. Big score for the Ramblers over there. And there was just one more I wanted to call out here. I got to scroll back up. It's such a massive list
Yeah, so many.
teams. Um, yeah, actually, I think that was it. So we're pretty good there. All right. Anything we left out, Mr. Ross?
Yeah, I mean, real quick, it looks like we have maybe 3 minutes here. I'm not going to take it all.
Okay.
But there's a lot of people who kind of look down on regional quarterfinal night. There's a lot of games that are 40, 50, 60-point games, right? And sure, like that's really not that exciting, but these players get one more game. And there's a lot of states that don't invite everybody to the tournament. It's a lot like football is in Wisconsin, where you have to finish of your conference, and it's really limited. Wisconsin brings everybody in, and I really do love it. I enjoy it. Even for the teams that are obviously going to be a lot better and probably going to win pretty easily, it still gets you into the playoff mode. As coaches, you can emphasize that if things don't go right, this is your last game, right? And as seniors, season starts over. Like everybody is 0-0, even though you know that you're probably going to win the game. But it does help create that sense of urgency. And if nothing else, these seniors get one more game. And anybody that has played high school sports remembers wishing that they had one more game, right? So kudos to the WIA for having everybody play on regional quarterfinal night. Officials are sparse, so having almost everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, right? most everybody in Division 5 plays, and then the other divisions, there's a couple, right, depending on buys and stuff. But yeah, I just wanted to give a try to get in front of it a little bit because there's a lot of pushback about like there's no competitive games the first night anyway. Who cares? These kids get to play one more time.
All right, folks, he is the architect, importer, exporter, Art Vandelay. My name is H.E. Pennypacker, wealthy industrialist. Have a good day.
See you.